I hear this from a lot of women, like, if a workout doesn't make me sore or if a workout doesn't make me sweat, is it worth doing? The average adult will embark on 126 diets over the course of her adult life. And
Wow.
that number is so like devastating to me because that also goes hand in hand with like probably fitness endeavors too. Like how many workout programs were started and stopped over the course of that life too. I like to really try to show people like, maybe there's a different way.
Very cool. Gab, I see you nodding profusely.
Education, inflammation, all of those things, sarcopenia, osteoporosis. These are the sort of cards we're dealt, but we don't have to play them. you know.
Recently, I had a gal, she said, I'm doing this because I don't want to spend the last 10 years of my life on a hospital bed. And I thought that that really boiled it down in such a succinct, like personal way.
And this is part of our name, movement living, being
Yeah.
able to just live in movement, to move through life with kind of this sense of strength yet ease. And I love how you just frame that all together. I think
Yeah.
that's just
Good.
absolutely brilliant.
I think we have a lot of negative associations with the word exercise or workout. We think like exercise and workout, it's just a means to an end. It's going to hurt when I do it, but it's going to get me to where I want to be with my body.
So proud of myself because my little granddaughter ran to me and I had stuff in my left hand. I actually bent down, picked her up using my glutes, core, everything, right?
Yes.
And I was able to do it. And I was so proud and I was so happy that I could do that.
We need to tell these stories that it actually
Mhm.
does work. This is a new life goal for me.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Megan. We've been really looking forward to this conversation. We can't wait to introduce you and the work that you do to our community. And I'd love to just hear in your own words for anyone that doesn't know you, what do you do, and how would you describe your work?
Thank you so much for having me to both of you guys. This truly is an honor. And I am a strength and conditioning specialist and a menopause fitness expert. So, what I do is I teach women how to move their bodies in a way that helps them feel their strongest self, helps them get past any lack of confidence and hesitations that they might have in their bodies in a way that feels extremely doable and sustainable and approachable. I think it's easy in our day and age to feel very overwhelmed if you're not a fitness expert. Most women aren't. And so when you start to look around of knowing you need to start moving your body and not quite sure knowing where to start or what to do first, it can be very overwhelming. And I really try to meet women there to show them this is doable. This feels so good. And here are the specific steps how to do it in the best ways possible.
That is amazing and exactly summarizes why we're so excited to talk to you, because that really reflects our approach to movement and how we want our community to think about movement, because it's exactly right. It can feel overwhelming, it can feel complicated. A lot of women in our community don't have a routine right now and may not even realize how important strength training is, which I want to come back to that in just a moment. But I'd love to hear from you. How did this come to be your mission?
I was always an athlete in high school, kind of rewind the tape that far back. An athlete in high school, but there was also a sinister side of it where I was very obsessed with my own body image. And
Mm,
I think for a lot of women, they enter the fitness world or they embark on their own fitness journey for those reasons alone of I just want to look good and have a, want to love my body when I look in the mirror. But sometimes that can get very clouded and distorted with how we actually view our body. But that led me down the path of pursuing fitness. And I started out working with high level athletes. I loved the science behind it and
mm,
how to help someone perform at their optimal. And I even worked with professional level athletes and some Olympic level athletes. But then I was also working with middle schooler and high school athletes. And many of those athletes, their moms would come and they would be sitting in the wings and they would come up to me after our training sessions and be like, "Can we work with you?" And so I started training a lot of these women and moms, and my approach, for whatever reason, I think it's my demeanor and just I'm not your typical like yell in your face kind of a trainer and make you feel miserable about the process. And it really attracted a lot of women that have spent years frustrated with the fitness process, spent
Mm,
years frustrated with how their bodies feel. The stats are unfortunate. The average adult will embark on 126 diets over the course of her adult life. And
wow.
that number is so like devastating to me because that also goes hand in hand with like probably fitness endeavors too. Like how many workout programs were started and stopped over the course of that life too. And so taking this different approach of like, let me meet you where you're at, but bring my background of like performance training, like helping women discover this inner athlete inside of themselves. And I know so many women I work with in their 60s and 70s, and they're like, I would never have used the word athlete in
Mm,
like conjunction with how I describe myself. But the moves I'm doing right now, I see when I watched the Super Bowl and they were warming up. Those are the same exercises that I've been doing in my workouts. And it was so validating for me to know like I'm doing remarkable things with my body that I never thought I'd be able to.
Yes, I love when you say athletic because I come from loving sports and I've done a lot of sports in my life. I did it in college, I did fencing. Um, when I was a kid, I was a swimmer. We wanted to bring our kids up that way, and so Amanda did ice skating and tennis. And so I love that connection because if you can help women see that in themselves, that's a huge wonderful way of convincing them to start on this path. And the other thing I wanted to mention, when you said it feels good, oh, I love, how do you convey that? That feels good part of training and building yourself is hugely important. So that's one thing I wanted to pick up on with you too.
Reframing that mindset of what exercise is in our
Yeah,
brains. And I love that you're called movement living. I think we have a lot of negative associations with the word exercise or workout. We think like exercise and workout, it's just a means to an end. It's going to hurt when I do it, but it's going to get me to where I want to be with my body.
right.
And so a lot of us women just like live in that realm for our entire life of like despising exercise, like dreading it. And a lot of it is because many of the workout programs out there are very, very challenging. And
Yeah,
we feel like we need to do something hyper challenging to move the needle. And if you are someone who's starting at the starting point, if you're on the starting line and you're just getting started with a fitness program or just getting started with a fitness journey, and you open up your program and it tells you you're supposed to do like 50 push-ups and 100 burpees, and you're like, oh boy, I better muster up some motivation to get this done, and this is going to be miserable. I'm not going to be able to walk for 5 days, but I got to try to figure out how to stay motivated to do this because the result is what I want. We really start to paint this picture of what exercise is. It's something that we're supposed to dread. We're not supposed to enjoy. It doesn't feel good. It hurts. It's miserable. In all of my
mm,
programs, the very first movements I teach you are ones that I know are probably going to hit spots on your body that have just been achy for so long
mm,
or have felt deactivated for so long. And I make sure that you're not going to be sore the next day. Like we're going to ease into it. So you start to look at it like these are movements that I love to do and I look forward to them. And a lot of the women that I coach, like they start to tell me, they're like, I really look forward to doing this because it feels so good for me. But it really does take this mindset shift of what is the expectation of the workout? The workout is to help you feel really good in your body, help you feel strong. And if you dread it, if you hate the process, you're not going to do it for very long and you'll never reach that goal.
so true.
just a follow-up question on that, because as if you do come from an athletic or sports background, the motivation is to be competitive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you need to transfer that to something where, say, doing cardio is less tedious if you're not playing a sport.
I hear this from a lot of women. Like, if a workout doesn't make me sore or if a workout doesn't make me sweat, is it worth doing? And this is an excellent question, especially for those of us that are highly competitive, especially competitive with ourselves. We're like, I know I am capable of a certain amount of strength and power and output from a workout. If a workout is like pretty mild and not doing that, is it even worth doing? So I find it's really helpful to go back and educate just a little bit and help women understand the different aspects of your fitness, the different things that have to all come together to make you your fittest self. Cardiovascular stamina is absolutely one of them, your cardiovascular health. Your muscular strength is one of them too. Most people stop there with those two things. They think as long as I'm working on my muscles and as long as I'm working on my heart health, that's all I need. But there's more. Your flexibility. And the moment I start saying these things, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, of course, that's a piece of it too. So your flexibility, your joint mobility is very important. You could have the healthiest heart, but have joints that are rusty and can barely move through any range of motion. You're not going to feel fit. You're going to feel miserable. Joint mobility. Balance is another one. You could be someone that does a lot of strength training, but never in a way that challenges your balance, and you find yourself in a precarious position. Maybe you're out there skiing and you slip, or you're out on the court doing pickleball or whatever it might be, and you don't have good balance, and that puts you at risk. You're not as your fittest self. Balance is another. Coordination. You look at high level athletes and you look at them and you're like, there's something about them. They just move like an athlete. A lot of that is their coordination. They're very well coordinated. Everything is communicating well, and everything is operating in a way that doesn't look clumsy, or puts you at risk. And then the final aspect of your fitness is power. The ability to develop strength at a fast pace, to catch yourself quickly, to produce power quickly. So those are all the aspects of your fitness. And there are some workouts that might work on, let's say, just balance and flexibility. You might not sweat. It might
Mm.
not feel hard. It might not, make you sore the next day. But was that less of a benefit to your overall fitness? No, you need those things. And we can use those lighter intensity workouts to help buffer the higher intensity workouts, to help improve the way you recover.
I love what you said about coordination, moving like an athlete. I think being able, and this is part of our name, movement living, being
Yeah.
able to just live in movement, to move through life with kind of this sense of strength yet ease. And I love how you just frame that all together. Just taking a quick step back, I would love to address, because I think there are people in our community who may not know the why
Mm,
of training.
yeah.
We all kind of know exercise is important and we should do it, like kind of that mindset you were thinking of before, but they may not feel like, it's for them. They certainly would never describe themselves as athletic, or like they deserve to be strong or feel like that's important. And I'd love to just hear your, I don't know, like your case for training. Like, why is it so important for women, especially in midlife,
Mm.
menopause, and beyond, to engage in some kind of program?
We can look at data. Data shows us that a number of things that women encounter in midlife and as they're aging that are miserable ways to feel in your body are completely preventable. And on a coaching call recently, I had a gal, she said, I'm doing this because I don't want to spend the last 10 years of my life on a hospital bed. And I thought that really boiled it down in such a succinct, like personal way of, I might not feel like working out today, or I might not feel like training my body in all of these ways, working on all those different aspects of my fitness. But what I do today invests in how my quality of life is going to be 10, 20, 30 years from now. Whether or not I'm going to have my kids take care of me when I'm just in my 60s and 70s. And so, unfortunately, the leading cause of death in women is heart disease. More women die every year from heart disease from almost all other diseases combined. Heart disease, and the American Heart Association says that 80% of heart disease is preventable. That is shocking numbers, that 80% of women who are developing heart disease and dying from it, this is a preventable disease. And a lot of that prevention is coming from our fitness and exercise. Working your heart is a muscle, it is a pump. Just like any muscle, if you don't work it, it gets weaker. Those blood vessels get weaker. And I know so many women that have that, hit the rock bottom where they'll either have a heart attack or they go see their doctor and realize, oh my goodness, my blood pressure has creeped up. My blood cholesterol numbers are not looking very good. Things are borderline now. Those are the first indications of heart disease. And so hopefully in that moment, that is a good wake up call that this is something that is preventable. Also, bone loss. In the first 5 to 7 years post-menopause, women can lose up to 20% of their bone density. And you cannot feel that happening inside of you. It's called the silent disease. You can't feel it. Most women don't know that they have osteoporosis until they fall and fracture something. And usually at that moment when they experience a fracture, it is the beginning of a slow decline in their overall functionality and the way that they experience life. Preventable, mostly preventable osteoporosis. Same with sarcopenia, losing muscle mass. We start to lose muscle mass in our 30s and then it speeds up post-menopause. And losing muscle mass has a direct impact on how you experience and function in your everyday life. Preventable, like all of these things we can actively do methods and training to help prevent these things. And what I love is that a good thorough strength training program can check off all of these boxes. We hear all of that and we think like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to do like a cardio workout and I'm going to have to do workouts for my balance and I'm going to have to do workouts for my muscles and I'm going to have to, and we start to think like there are all of these different boxes that I'm now having to check off and it becomes super overwhelming. We end up doing nothing. And that's not true. With a really well-designed program, we can accomplish all of these things for your longevity and your health all in one, in a way that's really fun too and feels good.
I mean, it's sobering to hear the data and
Mhm.
to hear, I think you said something that really stuck out to me, which was miserable ways of feeling in your body are preventable.
Yeah.
And something that I've heard a lot, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, but I think women are often in pain, but feel like, well, it's manageable and I'm surviving. So
Mhm.
it's not worth doing something about.
Mhm.
Or they see the data like that bone density loss is common, that fractures are common, that it's common to spend the last 10 years of your life in a hospital bed. And there isn't a shift in mindset of that it is preventable. And I'm curious if you have encountered that in your
Mhm.
work and if there are any shifters, like any mindset shifters or anything that you've seen in with your clients or with your community about like those aha moments, I guess, where someone realizes that it's preventable and that they deserve to feel strong, they deserve to feel healthy, they deserve to feel confident and pain-free as much as possible. Like, tell us a bit about that.
I think joint pain in particular is one of those things that we just assume like, I'm just getting older, like, oh, my knee hurts or oh, my back hurts. Like let's look under the surface and see what's causing the pain. Like, why is that pain there? Rather than just like pushing through it or sweeping it under the rug, like this is just a natural part of aging. Yes, things do happen as you age, especially for women. As we start to produce less and less estrogen, this has a dramatic impact on a lot of things, especially our joint spaces. So, if we start to look a little closer at actually what is going on here, this is not just aging. These are actual things that are occurring that have solutions for them. So when we produce less estrogen, our body tends to be a little bit more inflammatory. Estrogen is a natural anti-inflammatory. It's amazing. When we don't have that as much, we are more likely to have inflammation that runs a little bit more rampant if we're not careful. So then, when we don't have as much estrogen in our system, we need to be more proactive about other anti inflammatory lifestyle behaviors. So that can help with joint pain. Inflammation is a huge cause of just general joint pain, especially something like frozen shoulder. This is why we see frozen shoulder skyrocket in midlife. A lot of it has to do with inflammation in the joint. A woman just feels like it hurts. And so when we feel a painful joint, we're afraid to move it. And it's that combination of not moving it anymore and the inflammation that starts to freeze up that joint and locks it down. So that is what's going on there. Um, but any joint on our body too. Another thing that occurs in midlife is inflammation impacts the quality of our joint liquid. So we have something called synovial fluid in many of our joints, and it's this beautiful gelatinous like liquid that helps our joints like articulate lubricated. And when we have excess inflammation, it makes that liquid, picture like honey that's been sitting in your cupboard for too long and it's kind of crystallized. Kind of what happens to the synovial fluid. And so now when you go to move that joint, it doesn't move with as much lubrication. But other anti-inflammatory lifestyle factors can help that. So can moving that joint, that movement is lotion, motion is lotion. It helps to lubricate that joint better. So it's all about, I do find that it helps so much with people that are just feeling like I live an achy, painful life, and this is just my lot in life. This is everybody I know. This is how we go. This is normal part of aging. With a little bit of education and say like, okay, this is why you feel that pain in your knee. This is why you feel that. And you realize like, oh, now that I know why, now I can draw the line to the solution. And now I realize, wait a minute, I don't have to live with this pain anymore. Oh, there's a solution for my frozen shoulder. There's a solution for my knee pain. I can't tell you how many times I'll post a video with squats in it and I'll have women say, I can't do squats. I've got bad knees. I can't do squats. It's like, well, maybe you've never been told how to do a squat properly. Maybe we have some other tight tissues around the areas that are making the squat painful. Maybe we need to build up the strength in some of your stabilizing muscles so that you can squat without pain. So rather than just going through life saying, I can't, it hurts, this is how my life is now, I like to really try to show people like, maybe there's a different way.
Very cool. Gab, I see you nodding profusely.
I can't help myself. Yeah, no, totally wonderful. Your take on it, because education, inflammation, all of those things, sarcopenia, osteoporosis, these are the sort of cards we're dealt, but we don't have to play them, and you're offering a different way, which is fantastic, really.
Yeah, and it's, sure, this is the reality of the situation of just being in a woman's body that gets older.
Yeah.
But that means that once we are educated on what's actually happening, that is so empowering because now you know specifically what you can do to feel your absolute best. And so you don't have to age in a way that, all of our mothers aged, like just hoping and praying that you've got good genes holding you together. It doesn't have to look like that anymore.
That's a great, I love that. I think we talk about that a lot in what we're trying to do and help shift perceptions of what it looks like to age as a
Mhm.
woman. And something that comes up a lot is, well, I don't want to age like my mother.
Yeah.
Gab, Gab, you probably have some thoughts on this. I mean, you watched your mother basically decline
Well,
for
it
years.
was, yeah, I did. And she didn't have that active mindset. She was a beautiful person, had so many great qualities. But that part where her knee hurt and it kept hurting and she didn't realize that not moving it would make it worse. And I just watched it decline and decline. And I said to myself, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to have that happen. And I've been working with a trainer, all these things that, as you say, stabilizing those muscles,
Yeah.
working around that pain, figuring it out, and then attacking it. And so
Yeah.
all of the things, that's why I like what you do and I love following you, is because you are exactly right on the money in everything you're saying. It's just wonderful. And it is preventable. I mean, I am living proof. So there
Yes.
you
I
go.
love that. And I think we need to hear those stories of like, oh, this actually
Yeah.
does work. Because we
Yeah,
Oh, it
hear
does.
it and it
a great point.
yeah, like it feels like so theoretical, like, oh, sure, like that sounds nice. But like if I could list out the number of women that I have been able to work with that come to me with like terrible knee pain where they wrote off so many things, wrote off gardening, wrote off going for walks, wrote off riding a bike. And we just did some simple things
Yeah.
and showed them like, you don't have to live with this anymore. The number of those women it's like the list would be out the door. Same with back pain. I think there's so many women in midlife that just suffer through back pain. And that's what I love, just showing some women like, try this, just try this. Just let's see what happens. And a lot of them will go through like my 5-day core tune-up program or something and be like, It's gone. What I have been dealing with this pain for the last decade.
Yeah.
I don't know what magic that just was, but this pain is gone. You just opened up my world once again. It's just the coolest thing.
I can see you're on a mission,
Yeah,
honestly. And it's
very much
great.
so.
I love it. It's amazing. And you mentioned specifically frozen shoulder, which I just wanted to jump back to because that was one of our community questions, was actually
Oh, yeah.
specifically about frozen shoulder, and just if you have I don't know, like a standard protocol or just tips or exercise, things to avoid, things to do. You said already, don't not move,
Right.
keep moving. But are there any tips that you have for someone who might be dealing with frozen shoulder?
So if your shoulder is currently frozen right now, you really do need to work with a physical therapist to go through. There is a protocol on how to thaw it. it's there's the stages of freezing, frozen, thawing, and it can take a long time to go through the thawing phase. So working with a physical therapist, not just like hoping it'll go away on its own, like you really do need to work with a professional to help you get the thawing process going because there's other manipulation methods that they can do that can help speed it up. Otherwise, you really could be suffering with it for a very long time.
Mm,
But to prevent it,
yeah.
we want to move your shoulder joint through the largest ranges of motion as possible on a daily basis. Many women, their primary form of fitness is merely just walking. Walking
Mm,
is a fantastic method of exercise. It's a great baseline. It's good
yeah.
for your cardiovascular health, especially if you get up into those zone 2 walking. But here's what walking does not do. It does not move your joints through full ranges of motion. Your knee joint, your hip joint, your shoulder joints in particular. So if that's your only form of activity, you're going to notice a reduced range of motion in your biggest joints of your body. That will directly impact your quality of life, your ability to squat down and stand up, your ability to climb down on the floor easily, your ability to avoid frozen shoulder. So we want to make sure that whatever you're doing on a daily basis, you're moving your joints through their fullest ranges of motion every day. That's the best thing you could do to prevent frozen shoulder from happening to you, hands down. Then building up the muscles around your shoulder joint. So not just stretching it, not just doing stretches for it, but actually strengthening the muscles around your shoulder, the muscles around your shoulder blade, make it more stable and resilient to injury. A lot of women that deal with frozen shoulder, the impetus was a shoulder injury.
Mm.
They got hurt, rotator cuff injuries, something, they fell or whatever, which goes back to balance and coordination. So like the beginning of the end for the shoulder was some sort of injury. So they couldn't move it as much because it hurt. And then the frozen shoulder sets in, and now the frozen shoulder is the bigger issue. So if we can build up the strength around your shoulder joint, put as much muscle as possible around that shoulder, the likelihood of you getting injured in your shoulder or having a rotator cuff injury goes way down. So those are a lot of like easy, doable daily things that we can do to avoid it ever happening to you.
Amazing. And I love that you mentioned getting down on the floor, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of the women in our community are grandmothers, and getting down on the floor, it is a huge part of caring for especially younger kids, and even just being able to lift kids and stuff like that. So, you know, I think it's so wonderful to have a fitness routine, a movement routine where you're seeing, okay, how can I actually help myself do the things that I really love to do, and have a routine that supports those functional everyday activities.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really is making sure that your workout program is working on your lower body mobility. So your
Mhm.
ability to bend your knees deeply, your ability to bend your hips really deeply, that like lowering your body, having the strength to lower your body through a full range of motion and then lift your body up out of that position. Being able to do that in an offset stance, not just feet parallel, but offset, so that you have to balance a little bit more. When you climb up off the floor, you are in a staggered stance, like a half kneeling position, as if you're getting ready to propose, right? So there's some pressure on the knee too, that we have to familiarize your knee with a little bit of pressure also. And so all of these things can absolutely be trained. Your core is a huge component of being able to climb up off the floor, especially if you have something in your hands. You need to have the lower body strength, but also the core strength to hold, like to stabilize your trunk as you climb up off the floor. So if your workout program only involves like just walking, or if you do lift weights, if they're always using weight machines at the gym where you're sitting in a chair, you're just never getting yourself in that position where you're having to climb down and get back up again. And so you're going to find yourself someday where you're on the floor and you're stuck. And I do not want that for anybody. I don't care how old you are. If you are a 99-year-old woman, I don't want you to get stuck on the floor. No, the best way to prevent that from happening is to practice it starting now. If you're in your 30s, 40s, like practice it starting now.
That is
It,
one of my favorite descriptions of functional movement that I've ever heard. Thank you.
yeah,
Good.
I was going to say, if you don't practice it, and I do practice that,
Good.
but if say I haven't for a week or whatever reason, it does, you are weakened by it. You have to keep that up. It does really work.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was so proud of myself because my little granddaughter ran to me and I had stuff in my left hand. I actually bent down, picked her up using my glutes, core, everything, right?
Good.
And I was able to do it. And I was so proud and I was so happy that I could do that. So I completely agree with all you're saying about those strengthening those areas that need to be especially strong and balanced.
That's exactly it's like what you said, Megan. We need to tell these stories that it actually
Mhm.
does work.
It
Like
works.
Yeah.
Gab at 71 being able to hold
Yeah.
15 pounds of groceries and have a 30-pound like little girl run up to her and pick her up. Like that's something to celebrate, because it's
Yeah.
not what we think of still when we think of someone who's 71. And it
Right.
just doesn't need to be that way.
Well, it's such a goal, such a great goal. So.
It's very motivating. It's a perfect why. It's the perfect, and I love that anybody who comes into my program,
Yeah.
one thing I do, like, in the onboarding process is I actually have them go get a piece of paper and write down their why.
Mm.
Why is this important to you? Like, get it out of this, like, nebulous place and put it on a paper so you can see that. And they have to send that to me in a picture so that it's like it's holding them accountable. Like, this is why these everyday activities, this is why my everyday fitness matters to me. And I love reading through those because a lot of it is this stuff. It's like I want to be able to climb down on the floor and play a puzzle with my grandkids. I want to be able to bike around the Grand Canyon this summer with my grandkids. Like, the reasons are so inspiring and very motivating. And I think if we just stop and think through, like, why is this important to me? It takes our exercise and just it puts it into perspective and helps us realize, like, okay, for the days that I don't feel like showing up, for the days that I forgot that this is motion, like, this is beautiful movement and it does feel really good, those days that I forget that, having that why as, like, just really clear in front of me is gonna help keep me going.
So we have 3 pillars at Movement Living for helping women live well and age better. Movement, which is huge, and we also include rest and sleep in that because we feel like movement and rest sort of go together. Um,
Yeah.
Food and nutrition, which we didn't talk about too much. I feel like we need another conversation with you,
Yeah.
Megan. And then our third pillar is connection, and it's connection to self, relationships, purpose in life, mental health. And I'd love to hear from you. Obviously, your work is really focused on, the physical movement and food. But I'd love to hear from you, in your own life or in your clients' lives, like some observations that you have just about that pillar of connection, which we know is also really important to,
Mhm.
aging well.
Yeah. Yeah, the name of my company is Vigeo, and Vigeo, it's a Latin word that means vigorous, powerful, but one of the other descriptors is actually effective. And
Mm.
when I saw the word effective, it was like this light bulb moment went off. I'm like, I feel like that's what we want to be as women for as long as possible, like effective at life, whatever that might be. And when you have a fit and healthy body, you don't have to hesitate to do something that you're called to do. If your friend needs you to help move something or they're sick and you need to help them, like, effective at serving others too, effective at loving on your family and being there for your family, effective at just experiencing the joys of life and the joys of, like, being with family and friends. When your body is unhealthy, it hinders all of those things. It makes you just stunted and ineffective at a lot of that. And so I do think that movement and taking care of your body and exercise and fitness and eating well, it really helps the bigger picture of being a woman that doesn't have to hesitate because her body can't do it. I never wanna get in that position, as much as it is up to me. I don't ever wanna put myself in a position where I have to say, "I can't," or "I'm not able to do that," or "I can't help you because my body can't." And so I think that movement is one of the tools that we have at our disposal to help improve our connection with others, because it just helps us be so much more effective at everyday life, so we don't have to say no.
That's beautiful. That's
That's
absolutely beautiful.
awesome, really. That's incredible.
And you mentioned reading the Bible this morning. Does your faith also fit into that? Because I think, we have a large number of women in our community who are women of faith. And I think, you know, seeing movement as a means of service and being able to say yes in love, it sounds like that is a really important part for you. And I'm wondering if um that comes into your training as well.
It absolutely does. I think it drives a lot of, just the overall values of of seeing the value in everyone's body. I see everyone is created in the image of God, and their bodies are beautiful and have purpose and value, like inherent value and worth. And I know that there's a lot of women that just feel like, I don't feel like my body is valuable anymore or worth anything. And that could not be further from the truth. And so there's that aspect of it too. There's the other aspect of like just the blessings of being able to move and use and um, explore this beautiful creation in a body that, you know, it's not perfect by any means, but how cool. Like it's so cool. Like it's a wonder too. And this is where like I can nerd out on science behind it too, is just like marveling at the creation that our body is, and just the design that God put into all of it, and how all the pieces come together, and how we have the ability to foster that and take care of it and steward our bodies well, or throw it in the trash. And so I really like to help show women like these are some really great ways to take care of your body, to steward this incredible gift that you have been given for as long as you possibly can, so that you can do all of the things that you have been called to do in life without having to hesitate and enjoy the process.
Amazing. So, so wonderful. I feel like we could keep talking for so long. I'm sad that we have to start wrapping up. But I wanted to ask our rapid fire questions.
Yeah. Fun.
So yeah, these are meant to be super quick, just to kind of give us a snippet of your personality when it comes to wellness. So the first one is, what is a daily habit that you swear by to feel your best?
Well, I mean, the obvious is just moving. We gotta move. But I love going for a long walk outside. It's not my primary form of exercise. It's not how I'm my strongest self, but it is. I live in a beautiful area of the country, and so getting outside, taking my dog for a walk in the fresh air. If I don't do that on a day, like I feel like something's missing.
Amazing. And what is your favorite way to treat yourself?
A nap and a book, or a book and a nap, for I think in that order. And I do this every day, by the way. So speaking of like the the opposites, right, of working hard and buffering that with good rest, like every afternoon I close down everything and I pour myself a cup of tea, I get a piece of chocolate, and I read my book, and then I take a nap. So this is like my
Love.
daily treat.
This is a new life goal for me.
Yes. Good.
What is the health concern that you secretly worry about the most
For myself or for others?
for yourself?
Okay. I think that the one that I feel like I would have the least amount of control over would be dementia.
Mhm.
I think that most other aspects of health feels like I have some of the reins in my hands, that I can really help to prevent it, and but there's something about dementia that is, I've seen quite a few people with early onset dementia or even Alzheimer's, and it's devastating.
Yeah.
And I don't think about it much, but if that would be the one, I think.
Yeah. What is something that you are learning right now?
I am learning a lot more about fascia at the moment.
Ooh, we definitely need to book another conversation. We love fascia.
Fascia, and how fascia plays a role in your feelings of stiffness and achiness, and the fact that your fascia is made up of collagen and elastin, two things that estrogen helps improve production of. So we always think of like, collagen and elastin in our skin and seeing wrinkles because of that as we age. But there's if you picture like, oh, I have skin like all inside my body, like, like the fascia is being impacted the same way that the wrinkles on my face are. Like it's wild. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. That's really interesting. And then in a few words, what does wellness mean to you?
I think going back to being effective at life
Mhm.
and feeling strong through everyday activities.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that word effective.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Feel that
You
that's so unique and really compelling.
have a question. What attracted me to what you're teaching and how you're teaching it is that you are speaking directly to women who are in sort of my situation, just older, which is, do you have pain? Why do you have pain? I'm going to show you this stuff. And you've found a way to communicate effectively with this demographic. And I'm wondering what single factor made you be able to do that? Because that's amazing.
This is really funny, actually.
Yeah.
So, um, years ago, I did personal training, and I had to move to another state. And all of my personal training clients, this was like way before Zoom. This was like, 2010. And they were all like, "Well, we still want to train with you." I'm like, "How's that going to work?" I live somewhere else. They're like, "We don't want to go to anybody else. We still want to work with you." I'm like, "Well, what if we do this? How about I put together a workout program for you and I talk you through it over the phone?"
Hmm.
And so I spent years explaining exercises, describing how to perform them properly over the phone without any visuals, without any hands on, without being able to demonstrate anything. And I think that all those years of doing that helped hone that skill of communicating something and saying it in a way that just clicks. And so I think that's what it is.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say, Megan, about like that you would want women in their 50s, 60s, 70s to know, even 80s, 90s, just
Yeah.
in midlife and beyond, anything to know about being strong and healthy and confident?
I think just deeply understanding that your body is amazing. And at any age, it is capable of probably more than you give it credit for.
Mm,
And don't give up. Keep keep working at it. And one of these days you're going to wake up and be shocked at
Yeah.
what your body is able to do. And so just keep showing up and taking care of yourself. It really, really matters.
that's amazing. And if someone wanted to work with you or to find out more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
They can definitely find me on Instagram. I post there a bunch every day. So just my name. So at Meghan Dahlman on Instagram. I do have a podcast too. So we release episodes every week, Self Care Simplified. So once again, super simple, effective communication there over on my podcast. And then come work with me in some of my programs. My Jumpstart 30 program is the perfect place for someone to kickstart their fitness journey in a way that's not overwhelming and feels really good.
So good. I love that. Thank you so much. We'll make sure that we have those links wherever wherever this lives. And yeah, it's been so wonderful to talk to you, Megan. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, it's just been such a pleasure.
Yeah, well, thank you both, Amanda and Gab. It's just been a delight. Appreciate you guys.